My dearest, I have carried these words in the quiet chambers of my chest for what feels like an eternity, locking them away behind every nervous smile and hollow laugh I offered you. Tonight, under the heavy hush of shame, I finally dare to unlock that door. What I did to you was not a careless whisper. It was a deliberate act, an unkind and cowardly story I set loose in the world with your name pinned to it. You may have noticed it already. The tension in a neighbor's greeting, the awkward pause of a colleague who once greeted you warmly, the hush when you enter a room, the tilt of a stranger's eyebrows as if you carried an invisible stain. None of it was your doing. Every tremor of mistrust was born from my tongue. While you walked with openness, I laid a crooked path behind you, a trail of rumors too compelling for timid hearts to ignore. I made you a cautionary tale and positioned myself as the survivor. I remember the first time I spoke that falsehood. My heart hammered with a cocktail of guilt and relief. Relief, because with each exaggerated anecdote I fed to our friends, I felt myself stepping further from the messy truth of why we truly broke apart: my insecurities, my laziness, my fear of intimacy. Guilt, because even as their sympathetic eyes turned toward me, some kinder part of me silently screamed at the injustice I was stitching onto your reputation. I ignored that voice. I chose applause over honesty. The lie traveled beyond my control, leaping across conversations like fire over dry grass. Soon, people I barely knew praised my strength for surviving such a toxic partner. Each compliment was another ember smoldering in the guilt I tried to bury. I had conjured an illusion so convincing that even I began to believe fragments of it, replaying edited memories, until the revised script felt easier than facing the raw footage of our final days together. But truth rattles its chains. Every time I saw confusion on your face as someone treated you with chilly courtesy, I felt those chains jerk me back. Every time your name flashed on my phone and I hesitated to answer, fearing the weight of my deceit, I understood that I was living in a house whose foundation I had rotted myself. The cracks were structural, not cosmetic. So tonight, I choose demolition over denial. I owe you the full blueprint of my wrongdoing. First, let me confess how it started. In the aftermath of our breakup, I was drowning in shame and bitterness. I knew I had neglected you, canceling plans, dismissing feelings, choosing distraction over dialogue. Yet when curious friends asked, "What happened between you two?" the story that spilled from my lips came out inverted. Rather than say, "We drifted because I was afraid to grow," I said, "We ended because you wouldn't give me space." A half-truth, sharpened into a spear aimed at your heart. Second, let me confess how the lie grew. When asked for examples, I delivered them with theatrical flair, moments I once cherished, twisted into warnings. The time you called to check if I got home safely after a late night out became stifling surveillance. The afternoon you surprised me with lunch because I'd skipped breakfast became an unsolicited intrusion. With each retelling, I added color, drama, and a convenient omission of my own flaws. Third, let me confess the consequences I ignored. I did not think about the job opportunity you might lose if a hiring committee heard whispers about your supposed volatility. I did not consider the friendships that would quietly wither when acquaintances grew wary of your possessive streak. I did not ponder how isolating it must feel to have doors closed before you even knock. My imagination stopped at the boundary of my comfort. Fourth, let me confess the moment reality pierced my armor. Last week, I stood in line at a cafe when I overheard two strangers mention your name. They repeated phrases I recognized as my own. To hear my fiction echo back through unknown mouths felt like watching a child I abandoned grow into a vandal, to facing your life without me. That was the moment I grasped the full circumference of what I unleashed. Fifth, and crucial, let me confess why I'm telling you now. Because silence has made me a co-conspirator in every injustice you endure, and I refuse to be that person anymore. I would rather face your anger, disappointment, and heartbreak than hide a single day longer behind my lies. The fear of your rightful wrath is nothing compared to the fear of continuing this slow murder of your character. Yet a confession is hollow if it leaves the details blurred. I need to name the specific lies so you know exactly what I poisoned hearts with. I told them you were jealous, that every question about my whereabouts came from suspicion rather than care. I painted you as controlling, suggesting you monitored my social media likes and counted the hours I spent with friends. I even implied you had threatened to expose my private messages if I ever tried to leave. None of these things happened. You trusted me. You encouraged me to nurture friendships, to travel, to grow. The saddest irony is that while I accused you of control, I was the one orchestrating a narrative that stole your agency. I choreographed the way others would see you, handed them a script in which you played the antagonist, and applauded when they booed your entrance. I became the very tyrant I claimed you were, and it took me months to recognize the mirror I was avoiding. I imagined the ripple effects. Perhaps you walked into your favorite bookstore, and the clerk who once recommended novels with a smile now watched you from behind the register, wondering if the rumors were true. Perhaps an old classmate unfollowed you online, silently choosing sides. Perhaps you began to scan your own reflection, asking, "Did I really do those things?" That self-doubt is the worst theft of all, the theft of your confidence. I cannot rewind those moments, but I can ensure the next time someone repeats my story, I am there to dismantle it. I will tell them the bookstore encounter they imagined was scripted by my insecurity. I will tell them that jealousy was more familiar to me than to you, that I feared your light and tried to dim it with scandal. I also owe an apology to myself, though it falls far below the apology I owe you. When I lied, I amputated a piece of my own integrity. Living without it has left me limping through every subsequent relationship, questioning whether I deserve trust at all. You deserve more than a confession. You deserve restoration. If you ever wish to address the communities I misled, our church group, the local running club, the circle of writers we once met on Sundays, I will stand beside you, introduce the conversation, and then step back so your voice is heard unobstructed. If you would rather never see me again, I will still contact those same groups on your behalf, forwarding a written apology you can edit as you see fit. This is collaborative atonement, directed by your comfort, not my ego. What I did was not a single mistake. It was a series of choices, each carving another line in a portrait of you that never existed. I chose ego over empathy, cowardice over courage. I dressed my wounds with the fabric of your integrity, ripping it from your back without permission. Shame alone is a poor currency for restitution. So allow me to outline what I will do, knowing may never fully repair the damage. 1. Speak the truth to every ear that heard my lies, naming exactly what I said, why it was false, and how it harmed you. 2. Issue a public statement where appropriate, acknowledging my wrongdoing without excuses. 3. Approach mutual friends individually, asking them to give you the dignity of forming their own opinions. 4. Seek professional help to understand why I weaponize narrative, so I never repeat this cruelty. 5. Respect whatever distance you need. If forgiving me is too heavy, I will not demand it. These promises might sound like theater. You are not obliged to applaud my conscience. My actions in the months ahead must do that work,